welcome back to the Slept On podcast, the show where we shine a light on underrated talent and give them the recognition that they deserve. I'm Liv, and today we have a brilliant guest who has graced our screens in some of the biggest British TV shows and indie films. You might recognise him from Peep Show, EastEnders, and Spirit Breaker, but trust me, there's a lot more to his journey than what we've seen on screen. So, hello, Liam, welcome to the show.
Hi Liv, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
Well, it's a beautiful. I don't know when this will go out, but right now it's a beautiful day in the UK, and it's about 20 degrees, and it's like I'm sitting here with my kitchen doors open. It's lovely.
Stunning. I mean, it's great, but for most people like me in flats in London, we have no gardens, so I can see it from my window. I know, little violin. Yeah, I can see it from my window, but I've got a family up north and they're saying that the weather's not as good up there, so,
Oh, it's
you
grim
know.
up north. I used to live in Yorkshire, so yeah,
Oh, that is north. That's like north north.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited to speak to you. Anyone that knows me knows that I have watched Peep Show repeatedly for about 10 years, as have many other people. So I'm going to try and not refer to you as as Andy throughout the podcast. Um, but yeah, Liam, you've had such a varied career. Let's go back to the early days. Was acting always the plan, and how did you break into the industry?
So, short answer, yes. It was always the plan. I was in a school play when I was at primary school, and I kind of knew then this was what I wanted to do. But I've always been very pragmatic, and I had this idea that it probably wasn't the thing for me. I'm a working class kid from the East End of London. There weren't really any, people that sounded like me in on television or in movies. There was Michael Caine. Okay, there was just Michael Caine, really. That was the only one. So I just figured that wasn't really where I was going to go. And in fact, I worked for London Transport. I had various jobs when I left school. And I was working for London Transport, doing quite well, by the way. But I was also, at the age of 24, still a member of a youth theatre in East London. And it was the guys that ran the youth theatre, that kind of bullied me into going to drama school. They just kept saying, "You need to go to drama school. You should," and they just kept on. And eventually, I said, "All right, fine, I'll apply, and that'll show you." And then I got offered two different places. So
Wow.
turns out they were right. So I did a degree in drama in Yorkshire, a place called Bretton Hall, which is affiliated with Leeds University, and learned a huge amount, really, working with a really varied group of people. The tutors were just amazing. And what was great about Bretton Hall was that it was in the middle of nowhere. There were no distractions. The student bar didn't open until 8 p.m. and it closed at 10:30.
Oh,
So
not much of a student bar.
yeah, and that's a rubbish student bar, right?
Yeah.
But it meant that we concentrated on the work. So
Yeah.
I learned a lot while I was there. And then when I left college, I ended up working in the West End, which sounds really glamorous, but I was working backstage. I was working on crew and stage management and stuff. And I did that for a few years. And then I thought, hey, this is silly. I've trained, I've got this degree. And I stopped taking backstage work and held out for some acting work, which was really scary.
Yeah, of course. Because there's just no guarantees, and I think that's a large reason why people don't pursue it. Although nowadays there's no really guarantees for any sort of work, so why not?
No, it's interesting. The acting profession, in some ways, is because now, in the olden days, Libby, you won't remember these, but in the olden days, people kind of worked towards having a job for life. That doesn't exist anymore. Everybody kind of has portfolio careers where they kind of have a job for a period, and then they take that life experience somewhere else, and you have a number of jobs over the years. Actors have been doing that forever. That's what actors do. Their whole makeup is portfolio working. So, and you're only as good as your last job, and it's all to do with contacts and everything. So I was very lucky quite early on. I was doing things like TIE, theatre and education, and small scale touring, all through contacts, through people that I'd met. And then I got chatting to an old college friend of mine. This is probably about 6 years after I left college, who was a casting director for the BBC. And we just met for a drink. And hand to heart, There was no plan. It was just, oh, it'd be great to see her again. Let's meet up for a drink. You know, we were
Yeah.
both in London, and we got chatting, and then I got a message a couple of weeks later for an audition at the BBC for a part in Casualty. And I went, well, what's this? And I sort of scrolled down, and sure enough, her name was at the bottom. I was like, oh, okay, you know. So I did that, and I ended up doing 12 episodes of Casualty over the following years. And through that, I was able to get an agent, because there's a real catch-22 with agents. It's very difficult to get a job without an agent, and it's very difficult to get an agent without a job,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
they won't take people on sight unseen. And drama school showcases aside, well, no one was going to come to Yorkshire to see ours, so we didn't bother. So I was very lucky. It was contacts and connections that helped me in the early days. And then once you've kind of got your foot in the door, you start to build a reputation, and directors remember you, and casting directors remember you. But the thing is taking that first step. And I spent a number of years running a youth theatre in East London, and I always used to say to the kids there that wanted to go on and wanted to pursue acting and go into the profession that, excuse me, if that's what they wanted to do, then they must do it. They must try it. Even if you crash and burn and you fail, you've got to try it, because there's nothing worse than looking back on your life when you're 80 years old and going, oh, if only I'd done that. You know, it's you have to try. That's my kind of.
I completely agree because I also went to drama school, but I did it as a master's. I've always wanted to go. I'll regret it if I don't.
Yeah.
So I went. And I think with acting, I'd love to know how you feel about this. Even if you do, fail, crash and burn, trying is so much fun. Like
Yeah.
even just doing it, even if it doesn't go anywhere, it's still a lot of fun. But yeah, so I'd actually like to ask you about the state of the acting industry now as compared to 20 years ago. I read an article that Julie Walters took part in where she was saying how it's so much more inaccessible these days. And she was saying that she's a working class actor. And the reason she went to drama school is because she was given a grant. And she was saying that that grant is no longer available these days. And, like kids like the kid she was are being turned away. Would you agree? And like, what are your thoughts about that?
100%. I'm, like I said, I don't have any chip on my shoulder. I'm from a working class background. I'm clearly not really working class anymore. I've got a degree. I work in the arts. I'm clearly middle class, but I'm from a working class background. I could not afford. I got a full grant as well. I'm a little bit younger than Julie Walters, but I'm of that generation, I guess. I got a full grant to go to drama school. And in my second, I lived in halls in the first year, which was free. That was included in the price. And then I
What?
moved out in the second year and had to get a job to pay rent, but that was possible. I think if you're a working class kid now from London or Liverpool or Manchester or Carlisle or wherever, taking on a student loan for a profession like acting, where there's no, and I know that you have to earn a particular amount before you start paying it back and all of that, but to have that debt hanging above you with no real prospect of potentially paying it back. I mean, I think it's something like 90% of actors are unemployed 92% of the time. I've just
Yeah.
made that statistic up, clearly. But a lot of actors are,
Yeah.
aren't acting, and you've got to pay the rent.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you look at people like Jodie Comer who didn't go to drama school,
Yeah.
and it shows that you don't need to go, but some people do, and that's fine. And I think what she was saying, which is something that I thought was also very apparent, is that, a lot of there was a whole generation of like British actors that were Etonians,
Um,
Harrow alumni, and yeah, I just thought it
and
was
it's
very
kind of crept
striking.
back in a little bit as well, because you've got and no disrespect to people like Benedict Cumberbatch and I'm trying to think of the names. What's the guy who did Dare the Jackal, which was brilliant.
Oh, Eddie Redmayne.
Yeah, I mean I love him. He's great, but he's an old Etonian, like you say.
Mhm.
And no disrespect to them, because they're great actors, but they can afford to take that risk. They can take that hit financially, whereas Jodie Comer or Have you watched Adolescence on
Yes.
Netflix?
Yeah.
The young lad that's in that has done no acting
Hmm.
previously. He's terrifying. I mean, terrifyingly
Yeah.
talented. I mean, he's
Yeah.
terrifying in the program, but he's incredibly talented. And
Yeah.
Stephen Graham's another good example. He's another working class actor who's kind of fought his way into the profession
Hmm.
despite the disadvantages. But yeah, it's a tough profession anyway. But if you're, you know, most actors have to have another job. You know,
Hmm.
you can't rely on, unless you're mega successful, you can't really rely. I was really lucky that I've got a very supportive family, and my wife especially has really kind of helped me through the kind of the dips and stuff. But I've done other things. I've run youth theatres, and I've been a teaching assistant in school. I've done. I'm not good at inactivity. I
Hmm.
need to do something, so I will always find something, and I've been lucky enough to find things that I quite enjoy as well. But yeah, I think what Julie Waters is saying is true, that it's very difficult for working class. And also another thing, sorry, I ramble. I should
No,
have
it's
warned
fine.
you. Another thing that's happened is that places like youth theatres and youth clubs, places where kids could find that creative outlet, have gone. I
Mm.
mean, there used to be hundreds of youth theatres all over the UK. And when I was a kid, I was in a brilliant youth theatre in East London at a place called the Redbridge Drama Centre, and I went there when I was 14 and left when I was 24, which was the kind of getting towards the upper limit of the age range there. And without that kind of boost, and we work with other youth theatres, not only all over this country, but also in France and in the Czech Republic, or Czechoslovakia as it
Oh
was
wow.
then, Poland, Germany. We work with lots of other youth theatres. Pretty much all of them have gone.
Hmm.
Pretty much all of them have gone. So where do kids like me and Julie Waters and Stephen Graham and et al., all the rest of them, where do we go
Mm.
to nurture that talent?
I think having access to, I don't know, for me personally, not to just go on about myself all the time, but watching films and TV made me want to get into acting and
Mm.
go to drama school. So, was there anything that you watched as a kid that really had an impact on you when it came to acting?
Oh God, that's such a good question. When I was a kid, I'm very old. So when I was a kid, there weren't things. EastEnders, for example, there wasn't anything like EastEnders on.
Hmm.
I was really into movies. I was more into movies than TV, and I loved and still love. I was a weird kid, honestly. Old black and white films. My favourite film of all time is Casablanca. I've
Oh,
watched it hundreds of times,
amazing. Yeah.
and I see something new every time.
Hmm.
So I used to. This, this is a minor confession. I used to bunk off school a lot,
Hmm.
and quite often my parents were both at work, so they didn't know. I would come home and there would be an afternoon matinee film on in the afternoon, and
Hmm.
I would watch these old black and white movies from the Ealing comedies and from the mostly British rather than American. These old black and white movies, and I think that was the magic for me. And and it's interesting, a lot of those old films, there's a great film, it's not black and white actually, called This Happy Breed, which is based on a play by Noel Coward about a kind of lower middle class family in London between the two wars. And it's a stunning piece of film. And I remember watching that when I was probably 13 or 14 and just thinking, this is amazing. And it felt accessible. It was about people that were kind of like me. They lived in a small house. They were boxed in by neighbours on all sides, and this was a world that I recognised. And quite often, those
Yeah.
films, those old Ealing comedies and stuff, were about the working class. I sound like I've got a terrible chip on my shoulder about the working class, but I honestly haven't. Um,
Mhm.
but that for me was the accessibility. That that was it's that phrase of you can't be what you can't see. So if you don't see yourself on screen, you assume that that's not for you, sort of thing. So it
Mhm.
was very rare back in the sort of 60s and 70s when I was growing up to see genuine working class people on the television. There were people doing working class accents, but to your, you can hear it. You can tell if someone's not. I could no more play an old Etonian than Eddie Redmayne could play an East End gangster. Sorry, Eddie. I mean, maybe you could. You're amazing. I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, again, I'm not going to name them, but because I'm from the Northwest, I was watching a Stephen Graham show actually, and he had a wife in it who was doing a Scouse accent, and it was just like so apparent. And it
yeah,
is funny because I think anyone else would say it was great, but if you're from there, it's so
yeah.
obvious, and you're just like, oh,
You do. I remember when EastEnders started, and there were two characters in there who were meant to be twin brother and sister, and one of them was clearly from North London, and one of them was clearly from South London, and I could hear the difference.
yeah.
Just north and south of the river, and if you're from either side, you can hear the difference. But to the casting director, it was a London accent.
Yeah,
So
well, something we were told at drama school is that's great is that they're starting to really try and source people from the area that they're
yeah,
casting. So, if you're going to cast a Scouser, you find a Scouser. Apart from in the upcoming Beatles movie, where none of them
yeah,
are
yeah.
Scouse. But generally, that's what they're trying to do because they're trying to. I'd love to know what your opinion is of this from when you went to drama school, but they were really pushing us to keep our native accents when I was at drama school.
Yeah, I mean, I like most actors on my CV. I've got a list of accents I can do. But interestingly, pretty much everything that I've been cast on in television, theatre to a lesser extent, but in television certainly, I've been using my accent or a kind of rougher version of my accent. So, like for Peep Show, Big Mad Andy, he's a slightly rougher guy than I am. So, yeah, I think that tends to happen. You do get pigeonholed. Somebody once said, because I play a lot of geezers, I'm really not a geezer in real life at all. But somebody said, "Oh, aren't you fed up with being typecast?" And I said, "Well, typecast is just another word for employed. You know,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
want me to play another East End? Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, that's fine. How much is it again? Oh, yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
yeah,
So
100%. And well, let's talk about Peep Show. So, how did the role come to your attention, and had you seen it before joining the cast?
yeah, I was a fan. I'd watched series one and series two, and loved it from the off. And it was one of those programs where my kids were quite small at that point, so they were in bed, and I think my wife started to watch the first couple of eps and didn't particularly like it. So I ended up watching it because it was on at like half 10, 11 o'clock at night. It was on quite late on Channel 4. So it was one of the things I kind of watched on my own. And I was a jobbing actor at that point, so going up for auditions and doing little bits like, say, in EastEnders and Casualty and Wire in the Blood and, Silent Witness, all of these kind of British mainstays I tip up in very minor roles. And then my agent said, "I've got this audition for Peep Show," and I was kind of fangirling. I was going, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god," like that. And I was really nervous because it's when you audition for something that you're a fan of, it's really different because you suddenly think, "Oh God, I really want this,"
Yeah.
and I've got this attitude, which when I worked with the youth theatre, I used to say to them, when you go to an audition, you go in, you do your absolute best, but when you leave the room, when that door closes, forget it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it because you can't take back what you've done. That's it. Because otherwise, you just literally you sit there with your phone. Is it working? Why isn't my agent phone? Why isn't my like that? You have to forget it. That one I did not take my own advice on, and it took 3 days before I heard anything. And then it was a recall. They wanted to see me again. So it got down to me and one other guy. I don't know who that is. Probably Eddie Redmayne. That would be ironic, wouldn't it? Given that I keep mentioning him. My boyfriend, Eddie Redmayne. So it came down to me and one other guy, and I went back for a second audition. And I can't remember the bit that we did, but on the second audition, I did a bit. I did a line in a particular way, and the Robert Popper, who wrote Friday Night Dinner,
Oh yeah.
was one of the producers,
Mhm.
and I did something that made him laugh. He laughed out loud at the audition.
And you're like, yes.
Yeah, so internally you go yes, like
Yeah.
that, amazing, like that. And then before I got home, so I got on the tube, auditioned over in Hammersmith. So I went on the tube. When I came back above ground at the other end, there was a message from my agent just said, "You got it." And I was like, "I've got it, I've got it, I've got it." And it was,
Just you
but
dancing on the tube platform.
oh, literally, yeah, doing the sort of little happy dance. But Peep Show is very odd in terms of filming because when you do television, literally the first thing they tell you is don't look at the camera.
Yeah.
Don't look at the camera. And if you look at the camera, they say, "Oh, cut. Sorry, he was looking right down the pipe. You've got to go again." When you do Peep Show, it's the reverse. You must look at the camera at all time because that's the other character, and that was a bit of it was one of those kind of Am I
Yeah.
allowed to
Unlearning
swear?
what you've
Can I
learned.
swear on this podcast?
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
Go for
it
it.
was a head fuck. It was a
Yeah.
complete head fuck because it was the complete opposite of what you've been trained and what you'd learned to do.
Yeah.
But I've got to say, it was incredible fun to do. The scene in series 3 where I kicked the bathroom door.
Mm.
So just before the take, they're getting ready to setting up and everything, and the set carpenter came up to me. This is a true story. The set carpenter came up to me and he said, "Liam, we don't have a second door. So if you could do it in one take, that would be amazing. So no pressure, right? If you
Yeah.
can kick this door off its hinges in one take, I'm happy to tell you that what you see was the first and only take we did. So,
I mean, now I'm going to ask, did you have any experience kicking doors down beforehand?
no, do you know, that was the first door and only to this date door I've ever had to kick. So I have a
Oh my
natural talent.
gosh,
Yeah,
that's
so that was
brilliant.
no pressure, right? So
Yeah.
and then, sorry, just so then what happened in the interim, because I was in series 3, and then I was in series 8, and in the
Mm.
interim, what had happened is I'd stopped acting. I decided to take a break. My wife was working, and it made more sense for me to be at home and look after our boys and be the house husband and take them to school. And in fact, I ended up working in the school that my youngest was a pupil at. And I came home from work one Friday afternoon, and my wife was at home, and she said, "Channel 4 are after you." And I went, "Why? What have I done?" I thought
Yeah.
Christian Guru Murthy was after me, but
Dispatches.
it was dispatches. Yeah, what do they know? What do they know? And what they'd done is when they were writing Series 8, they got to this bit where initially the Big Mad Andy wasn't going to be in that episode at all. It was going to be other mad guy that they'd employed. And then in the writer's room, they said, "Oh, do you know what would be really mad? Is why don't we see if we can get the guy from Series 3 and get him back again? He was really funny." This is the story they told me anyway. So I got home, phoned this number. I can't remember the name of the woman. But anyway, it was a long time ago. And she said, "We'd like to bring Big Bad Andy back. Would you be interested in doing it?" So I had to go in the next day and talk to my head teacher. And I said, "Would I be okay to have 2 weeks off in the middle of term?" And she said, "Well, what for?" I said, "Well, Channel 4 want me to make a sitcom with them." And she went, "Yep."
Yeah.
Yep, straight away. Yes, of course. 2 weeks off. We'll cover you. That's fine. So in the
Yeah.
middle of doing that, I went off and made I made Peep Show again, which was great. So
I'm so glad she said yes. Imagine.
do you know what? I would probably have done it anyway. I'd have called
Good.
in sick to go back and do Peep Show. Definitely.
Good. I think that the series 8 episodes are arguably what Big Mad Andy is most iconic for. Like a lot of the crazy behavior is like amped up, I would say. In
Yeah,
there.
it's interesting. My brother can't watch the episode, the Big Mad Andy episode, because he said I can't watch it. He said because it's you having a nervous breakdown. He says, and I can't watch it. He said he got
Oh,
so far in, and he went, "Well, this is too disturbing. I can't watch." So he's never seen it to the end. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. And what was it like? What was it like working with David Mitchell and Robert Webb?
well, do you know what? I wish I could say, "Oh, what a pair of bastards they are," but they are. They're really not. Everybody, all the whole cast, were really welcoming. David is. They kind of. They're very similar to the characters they play in a sense. David is a little bit uptight. He's a little bit shy as well. He does a crossword between takes. He sits and does the crossword
Of
and calls
course.
out clues. And we're about to get a visit from another part of the menagerie here. This is my cat coming into shot.
Oh, hello.
Sorry. Hello, Dora. I'm in the middle of something, dear. And Rob's very funny. He's very uh, lots of stories and stuff, and he's a lovely guy. Who else did I work with? Matt King, yeah, lovely. Izzy Sooty, she's great. We had a really interesting chat, me and Izzy, because we both have an interest in. This is weird. We both have an interest in abandoned buildings.
Oh,
I quite like exploring, breaking in to old
yeah.
buildings. I
Well, you can break the
haven't
door
done it.
down.
Haven't done it for 20 years, but there's something fascinating about an empty building, you know.
Yeah.
She said, "Oh yeah, God, I like doing that," and we were sort of swapping stories about places we'd been. The only person I didn't meet of main cast really was Olivia Colman.
Mm.
But when the series had finished, I got a call from Channel 4. They were having a rap party, invited me to the rap party, which was amazing. I didn't normally do those because normally I'd had like three lines in something, and you go along and you think, what am I doing here? I don't know anyone. But I went to that one, and when I got there, Rachel, the director, came up to me and she said, "Oh, Liam, by the way, we're showing an episode at the rap party." I said, "Oh, brilliant! I get to see part of Peep Show before anyone else." She went, "Yeah, yeah, we're going to show your episode." And I was like, "No, no, 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 don't show my."
Yeah. Yeah.
So, because I hate watching myself on screen, because
Yeah.
all you see are the mistakes. Um, so they showed my episode, and it you know it's a very funny episode. It went down well, and I was at the bar afterwards getting a drink like that. And Olivia Colman came and tapped me on the shoulder, and she said, "Oh, hello, uh, I'm Olivia. We didn't meet when we were filming." That's my impression of Olivia Colman. Hello.
That's a good impression.
We didn't meet when we were filming, but I just wanted to say how brilliant you were. I really thought you were really funny like that. And then she kind of just swanned off into the crowd. So, Oscar winner Olivia Colman thinks I'm funny. So there you
Yeah.
go.
I think the whole of
That's my
Britain
claim
thinks
to
you're
fame.
funny. Yeah, I mean, I actually have such an embarrassing story. I met Robert Webb talking about fangirling because I used to work at Waterstones in
Yeah.
Hampstead. And obviously working at Waterstones in Hampstead, you get all sorts of wealthy people coming in. And I'm not really one to fangirl, but I love Peep Show. And then
Yeah.
I saw Robert Webb and I thought I can't not say anything, but also like as a member of staff, like we're not supposed to. So I waited until my lunch break to go up to him and be like, "Ooh," and then I just started babbling at him. Like he must have thought I was insane. I was just saying, "Oh, I'm such a fan and I think you're so funny and you're amazing." And then he was so lovely, he shook my hand and he said, "It's great to meet you." And then I went on my break thinking, okay, he doesn't know that I work here, whatever. Um,
I can
came
see what's
back, yeah, came back and he was still there. An hour later, I thought, oh God, so then,
browsing. Yeah, browsing. Oh, let's look at this one.
yes.
Yeah.
So then I came back to work and I was stocking the shelves and he said to me, "Excuse me, do you know where?" And I turned around and he was like, "Oh, hi
Oh, it's
again."
you.
Yeah, I'm the crazy stalker. Yeah. But he was lovely and
He
very,
is. Yeah.
yeah, very mild-mannered.
Yeah, he's quite quiet yeah, but
Yeah.
lovely to work with, and the crew as well. Everybody on the show was really good fun, very efficient, because it's a mad program to make. You know, it's all POV. So if you've got, say, four people in a scene, you have to shoot the scene four times from four different perspectives. So, you know, you film it from David's point of view,
Hmm.
then you film it from Rob's point of view, then you film it from Dobby's point of view, then you film it from my character's point of view, then you have to try and recreate it four times perfectly.
Yeah.
And the angles change slightly, and the actors are standing behind the camera. But rather than directing your line at the actor that's just spoken. You have to look directly at the camera.
Did you find that more? I know you've said about challenging from the perspective of like having to unlearn what you'd learned, but was it more challenging in terms of like, how do I put this? Was it more challenging in terms of it feeling more natural? Because obviously, if you're speaking to someone else, you can try and like suspend everyone else in the room.
What really helps is from series two, I think onwards. I think series one they filmed in an actual flat in Croydon, and then from series two onwards they recreated the flat in the studio, and it's a completely immersive studio with it looks like the flat. So that's very surreal when you first go on set, especially like me. You've watched the first two series, and suddenly you go, "Oh my God, I'm actually in the flat." That's really weird. But that really helps because it creates the world around you, and you kind of, as an actor, when you're filming, you learn to kind of ignore the camera and the boom operator and the makeup department and the wardrobe and the hair guy. You just kind of you have to blank them out and just concentrate on the acting, um, if you can do it. Yeah, I try my best. Um, but being actually in the flat really kind of helped,
Yeah.
because you were in the world. You were immersed in the world straight away. So
Yeah. And of course, I have to ask, do people come up to you on the street? Have you had any weird fan interactions?
the yes, occasionally. The weirdest one I was in. It was either Aldi or Lidl, one of those supermarkets, and I was at the till, and they whiz things through on the till. You've really got to be,
Yeah.
you know. So I was trying to kind of pack my bag, and this woman tapped me on the shoulder, and she said, "You've ruined my shopping experience." I said, "Yeah, sorry, pardon, love, what did you say?" She said, "My husband, every time I turned around to put something in the trolley, my husband was following you because he thinks you were in something called the Peep Show," like that. And I said, "Oh, where is your husband?" And he was kind of like over there with the trolley, looking a bit shamefaced. And I said, "Yeah, it is me. I'll come and talk to you in a minute," like that. And I had a little chat with him. So occasionally I do that. But what you probably, I don't know if you know or not, but for the last 7 years, I've been touring a Peep Show themed quiz
Yeah.
around the UK, which came about when a guy called Giles Bursnell contacted me on Twitter. And he said, "I run a fan page for Peep Show. I'm thinking of running a quiz in Manchester in a couple of months. If I pay you, would you come and host it?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, that sounds like a laugh. I'll do that." And I gave him my contact details, and he messaged me the next day, and he said, "It's sold out in 10 minutes, like 200 tickets. It's sold out in 10 minutes. Could you come back and do a second one the following week?" And I went, "Yes, okay," like that. 7 years later, we're still doing it. I was in London last night. I'm in Newcastle in a couple of weeks. Then I'm in Leeds, Sheffield, Manchester, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Nottingham, and Windsor. That's the ones that are booked coming up, and it's nuts. So, in a way, I maybe don't get as much kind of taps on the shoulder in the supermarket because people know where to find me now. They can come and see me at the quiz, and that's good fun. And Peep Show fans are amazing. It's a great fan base. It's very rainbow rhythms. There's an in joke for you. It's all very rainbow. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
great.
No, yeah, I follow Dobby Club on Instagram. They have
Yeah,
like nearly 200K followers at this point.
I know. Yeah, more than me.
It's and me.
Yeah.
It's
Wow. What's
crazy, but
that about?
I know, but they have it is such an amazing following. And also it's become such a cult show. And I think Big Mad Andy is such an iconic part of that.
Yeah,
And
and
people love
I
that.
had yeah, I had kind of no idea about this. I mean, I knew that it was a kind of a cult TV program, but I had no idea that the character, because it's like 2 weeks' work for me 15, 20 years ago, and you kind of forget about it. I had no idea that he'd taken on this kind of cult status within the fan base. Because
Yeah.
although I was a fan, I wasn't a fan. Some of the questions we ask in the quiz, I haven't got a Scooby. And Giles writes the questions, and I say to him, I go, Giles, no one's going to know this,
Oh, they do.
and they, oh my God, do they know? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, quite rabid fan base, but great. It's great fun. Yeah.
And just to put you on the spot a little bit, do you have a favorite line from Big Mad Andy?
Actually, the favourite line I have is not my line. It's an internal that David says that Mark says. It's when Andy says, "If you don't hit me, I'm going to drink this paint. It's really cheap and nasty paint." And Mark says, "I fucking knew it." And it's the self-centered nature of that just makes me laugh.
What is going on?
You were right, Mark. I was wrong. I can't fix him. I'm not Freud.
I want you to punch me, Jess. I want you to punch me better.
I'm not going to punch you.
Don't punch him. Fucking punch me.
No. You'll punch me back.
Oh, I won't. If you don't punch me, I'll drink this paint. This is really cheap and nasty paint.
I fucking knew it.
Here's this guy in absolute, the throes of a breakdown. And all he's caring about is, I knew that wasn't Dulux heritage. I knew that was cheap paint. So that's...
Yeah, I mean, what makes me laugh about that scene is the fact that you turn to Mark when you say it. Like, you're speaking to Jeremy until then.
Yeah.
And then for cheap and nasty, it's kind of like
This is
it's
really
so
cheap
good.
and nasty paint. Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually, if you'll humor me, in my episodes, I like to just do like a fun little game, just to sort of wrap things up. And I've called it Sweet As or Nah Mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see what you did there. Yeah.
Yeah. And as we know, Andy is a carpenter. So I'm going to give you a list of odd jobs. And if you think Andy would accept the job, say Sweet As. And if not, say Nah Mate.
No, mate.
Ready?
Okay, let's go for it.
Okay. So you're asked to build a garden fence, but the customer says he can only pay you in mystery meat from his freezer.
That's what it has. Yeah.
A bloke asks you to put up shelves, but he insists you do it blindfolded for the sport of it.
Nah, mate. I don't think no.
You get offered 50 quid to paint a guy's entire flat, but he wants it done in 2 hours, and all you've got is a single paintbrush.
Nah, mate. Because that would mean him actually working, wasn't it? And Andy wasn't great at actually doing the work, really.
Yeah, I thought that. I thought I would have been surprised. Superhands needs his van redecorated, but keeps emphasising speed and deniability.
Speed and deniability. Yeah, Sweet As. I think they would have got on, Superhands and Andy somehow.
They never meet.
We have a brief interaction where he says, "Do you want to buy some ballet shoes?" And I think Andy says, "What size?" I think he says, which is like, it's like, what size? What difference does it make?
Size? That's brilliant. Jez needs his bed fixing, but can only pay you in expired scratch cards and words of affirmation.
I'm going to go nah, mate, on that one. Sorry, Jez.
Finally, you have the chance to decorate a new cafe, but the owner insists on theming it around existential dread.
Oh, Sweet As, yeah. Yeah, my therapist says that's the sort of thing I should be getting into, so,
Amazing. So Liam, let's talk more about your more recent work. What are you up to at the moment? Is there anything that we can look forward to?
I haven't got anything. Well, I've possibly got something in the pipeline coming up. I'm waiting to hear, but I've got a film it's on Amazon Prime and Hulu and various other platforms. It's a film called Members Club, which I made with a guy called Mark Coleman, who I've known for years, and I think this is the third film that I've made with Mark. And he's a lovely guy, but he's a very talented and sick individual. So this is a horror comedy, a British horror comedy about a group of aging male strippers. I play the manager, who get offered a lucrative job in the wilds of Essex. But what it is they're going to be sacrificed to resurrect a murderous 17th century witch. And my character, it's a great plot. My character, who used to be a stripper but isn't anymore, has to do one last dance to save the world. That's a catchline, right?
That is fantastic. And when is it out already?
It's on Amazon Prime, and if you
Amazing.
Google Members Club, it's on various platforms, but it's definitely on Amazon Prime, and it's doing a few festivals and stuff. It's won a couple of
Fantastic.
awards
Yeah,
already.
well, I'll link that under this video. I'm definitely going to go and watch that after this
Yeah,
call.
and there's a film
100%.
called Manfish that I also made with Mark, which is out there somewhere. Again, if you Google it, you'll find it. And the next project I've got is probably with Mark again, coming up in the next year or so. I don't do a lot of acting work anymore because I live in the arse end of nowhere, and I spend most of my time now working with dogs, so training dogs
Lovely.
and stuff like that.
I have to say, Liam, you can't just drop the fact that you did a film called Manfish and not explain.
Yeah, okay.
What?
Manfish is another horror comedy from Mark Coleman. It's a
Okay.
cross between Snatch and The Shape of Water, if you like. It's kind of I play another geezer in this one in Canvey Island in Essex, and my brother discovers this sea creature, this manfish, that crawls out of the water in Canvey Island, and my brother and the manfish kind of fall in love. It's a really odd film, but very funny.
Okay.
And that's out there somewhere as well. And weirdly, my youngest son, plays the manfish. He's covered in prosthetics. You can't recognise him, but my
Amazing.
son played the manfish. Yeah.
That sounds fantastic. I'll need to watch that as well. And finally, so this podcast is all about highlighting talent that deserves more recognition. So please, could you give me two actors that you think are slept on?
Oh God. Do you know, my problem is I'm terrible with names. Um,
Or it
do you know,
doesn't even have to be an actor, it could be like a screenwriter, a director, anyone sort of in the
oh
film.
well, I'm going to big up Mark Coleman again, who I've done these two films with. I think he's um, potential emerging talent. Mark, he's amazing. And there's also a guy called Steve Braund who does prosthetic work. And he's incredibly talented as well. So he's Mind Magic Studios.
Okay.
Have a look at their work; they're really amazing. And there's another actor that I've worked with a couple of times called Dean Kilby. Actually, check out Dean Kilby. He's in both Manfish and Members Club, and a whole bunch of other things. He's another jobbing actor that kind of just trundles along and kind of always delivers, and is a really lovely guy to work with. So yeah, Dean Kilby. I'll go with that. You owe me a pint, Dean, by the way, for that one.
Dean, you had it
Definitely.
here. Amazing. And what advice would you give to actors who feel they're struggling to get the recognition that they deserve?
Well, if I can quote the film Galaxy Quest, I would say, never give up and never surrender. Just keep going. You just got to keep going. I've kind of been really. I was talking to my wife the other day. I was saying that I've been really lucky that over the years I've managed to earn a living doing things I love. So therefore, it never feels like work. And whether that's in front of the camera or behind the camera or backstage, I've always kind of been involved in the creative industries pretty much from my early 20s. So, a long time now. And I kind of achieved that through just dogged stubbornness, really. I just kind of just kept going. And there were times when it didn't work. I'll be frank, and most actors will tell you that there are times when, never trust an actor that's never worked behind a bar, because you
100%.
always, yeah, you always have to have something else, another job, another string to your bow. And I was lucky that I was able to find creative outlets. So I directed and I wrote and I did things for nothing as well. I kind of, when I was 50, a long time ago, but when I was 50, I said, I'm going to say yes. So I just said yes to things. And for the most part, all the things I said yes to turned out pretty well. There was only one job that I said yes to that when I'd done it, I thought, didn't really enjoy that. But it was an experience and I learnt from it. So even the jobs that you don't like, you learn from, you know.
Absolutely. And you meet people, and, as we've said, this is what this industry is all about. It's making connections,
Yeah.
networking. Yeah.
Yeah, and you never know. You meet somebody you know, 10 years ago, and they remember you, and you go, oh,
Yeah.
I know who we can get that guy, and it's those connections. And, I always say, the other thing I used to say to people, it's the old adage really, but when you're on set or in rehearsals for a play or a show, whatever it is, learn your lines, listen to the director, and don't be a dick, really. Just try and get on with everybody. Everybody's there working together. The crew, everybody is there working together. And actors that kind of show off and are prats and stuff, they get a reputation as well. And it's very rare that they get more work. Whereas if you're good to be, you're fun to be around, you're reliable, you hit your mark, you know lines, but also you're quite fun to be around, and you're up for it, and you have enthusiasm. Those people get more work because you want to spend time with those people. So
Okay. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for coming on. It's been so lovely to speak to you.
you too.
And you know what? I'm definitely going to get tickets for the big quiz at some point.
Yes.
It's next in London in a few weeks, right?
Yeah, we are the first Thursday of the month. We're at the Brixton Jam in London, and other than that, we're all over the UK. If you follow Dobby Club or me on the socials, I'm usually posting the quizzes are. So come and see. Yeah, come and see us. And if you come to London, come and say hello as well.
I will. Absolutely. And I'll link it down below for anyone else. Huh, sorry?
So just hide at the back. Come and say, "Hey, it's me."
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to link it down below for anyone else who's interested. It looks absolutely amazing.
Oh,
And
they're great fun. It's unlike, I always say that the Peep Show quizzes are like the Matrix. You can't be told about them. You've got to experience it, because it's
Yeah.
not like a normal quiz night. It's quite feral, and there's loud music and smoke machines and flashing lights, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, I've been doing them 7 years, and I still absolutely love doing them. So
yeah. Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you again, Liam, for speaking with me. It's been great to find out more about you. And yeah, maybe see you at the quiz.
yeah, see you out there.
Yeah, well, great. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Cheers.